Stop. Before you continue, ask yourself this question without fear. Can a genocide be sacred? Because in the ancient texts, the extermination of entire peoples does not appear as human error. It appears as divine will. No surrender, no forgiveness, no warning. Total elimination, men, women, children. Nothing was to be left alive. And for centuries we learned to call that justice. We learned to call it obedience, even love. So, coders, the question is not whether this is written. The question is, what kind of God erases entire peoples and demands to be called holy? Today we do not come to attack beliefs. We come to read without filters. And what we are about to see cannot be forgotten. Case 1. Jericho. Ritualized extermination. Jericho did not fall as cities fall in history. There was no negotiation. There was no prolonged siege. There was no treaty. There was a ritual. Yahweh did not order an immediate attack. He ordered marching, in silence, for days. Priests at the front, trumpets, circling the city. This was not a common military strategy. It was a war liturgy. When the walls fell, the order was clear, and it was written without ambiguity. And they utterly destroyed all that was in the city with the edge of the sword, men and women, young and old, oxen, sheep and donkeys. Joshua 6:21. No guilt was discussed. No distinction was made. Everything that breathed had to die. Jericho was not conquered. It was consecrated through extermination. The entire city became an offering. And here a key detail appears. Only one person was spared, Rahab. Not because of universal innocence, not because of spontaneous mercy. She was spared because she submitted, because she collaborated, because she recognized the new power, Joshua 6:25. The exception does not negate the rule. It confirms it. Whoever integrates into the system lives. Whoever does not disappears. So, coders, what real threat did the children of Jericho represent? The elderly? The animals? Why did an entire city have to be erased from existence so that the land could be holy? Here the model is exposed without metaphors. Claimed territory. People eliminated. Land consecrated. And the most unsettling part is this. Jericho was not an exception. It was the first visible pattern. And what comes next is no less dark.
Case 2. Amalek. When massacre is never enough, there is a story where violence is not only commanded, it is insufficient. Amalek. Yahweh speaks without ambiguity. Go and utterly destroy Amalek. Have no pity. Kill men and women, children and infants, cows and sheep, camels and donkeys. 1 Samuel 15:3. The command allows no interpretation. It is not defeat. It is not expulsion. It is total erasure. Saul obeys, but not completely. He defeats the enemy but leaves King Agag alive. He keeps the best of the livestock, and then the unthinkable happens. Yahweh is not angered by the bloodshed. He is angered because it was not enough. I regret that I have made Saul king. 1 Samuel 15:11. The sin was not killing. The sin was leaving survivors. Samuel makes it clear when he himself executes the enemy king to complete the obedience. 1 Samuel 15:33. Here the logic is exposed. Violence is not the problem. Limiting violence is. So, coders, what kind of God is not satisfied with victory, but with absolute extinction? What authority demands total death to feel obeyed? Because when divine wrath is awakened not by killing, but by not killing enough. We are no longer talking about justice. We are talking about something much darker. And we still have not seen how far it goes.
Case 3. Sodom and Gomorrah. Total erasure as judgment. When there is no human army, the execution is not delegated. It comes from the sky. Sodom and Gomorrah were not besieged. There was no battle. There was no surrender. There was total erasure. The text says it plainly. Then Yahweh rained down from heaven brimstone and fire on Sodom and Gomorrah. Genesis 19:24. It was not a prolonged warning. It was not gradual correction. It was annihilation. Entire cities reduced to ashes. Everything that breathed disappeared. And the message was clear. Even looking back was forbidden. Lot's wife looked back and became a pillar of salt. Genesis 19:26. Here, there are no soldiers obeying orders. Here, there is a divinity directly executing extermination. Fire does not purify consciences. Fire erases existence. So, coders, if this act was moral justice, why did it leave no room for repentance? And if it was divine judgment, why does it look so much like a demonstration of absolute power? Because when punishment does not distinguish, when destruction is total, we are no longer talking only about sin. We are talking about control. And this will not be the last trace of fire in this story.
The pattern. When extermination repeats, it stops being an exception. Jericho, Amalek, Canaan, Sodom. 4 different scenarios, the same outcome. Too many repetitions to call them coincidence. Too many explicit orders to call them human excess. They are not isolated stories. They are not interpretive errors. They are a theological pattern. The structure is always the same. First, a chosen people. Then, a claimed land. Then, peoples marked as impure. Finally, total elimination. And when no one remains, the land is consecrated not by life, by absence. This pattern does not speak of universal justice. It speaks of control. It speaks of expanding power, of sacred borders, of territories cleansed with blood. And here appears a question that unsettles anyone who faces it honestly. If Yahweh is God of the whole earth, why does he need to conquer it like a tribal king? Because when a power needs to erase peoples to affirm itself, we are no longer dealing with a religious accident. We are dealing with a system, and we still have not reached its center.
Clash. Old Testament versus New Testament. Jesus versus the logic of extermination. Here, the narrative breaks, because when Jesus appears, the logic that governed violence begins to collapse. The law demanded death. Jesus interrupts executions. When a woman was to be stoned, not by tradition but by legal mandate, Jesus stops, and stops everyone. Let the one without sin cast the first stone. John 8:7. And no one kills her. The law said eliminate the guilty. Jesus responds with silence and lets violence drown itself. When his disciples ask for fire from heaven to destroy a village, Jesus does not celebrate them. He corrects them. You do not know what spirit you are of. Luke 9:55. He does not rebuke disobedience. He rebukes the spirit that desires extermination. Jesus does not erase peoples. He does not mark enemies for disappearance. He does not purify territories with blood. He does the opposite. He approaches the impure. He protects the condemned. He forgives the enemy. Where the law demanded death, Jesus introduces mercy. And here arises the question that dogma cannot answer. If extermination was holy, why does Jesus disauthorize it not with speeches, but with actions? Because Jesus does not debate the system. He neutralizes it. And when someone neutralizes a sacred logic without replacing it with another violence, they are not correcting details. They are pointing out that something was wrong from the very beginning.
Central question. So, coders, we reach the core. The question that sustains this entire chapter. Who needs to erase peoples, a universal God, or a territorial power, a creator of life, or an administrator of borders, divine justice, or a strategy of domination? Because when a single narrative unites war, sacrifice, and extermination, it stops looking like devotion and begins to look like a system. A system that conquers with the sword, sustains itself with blood, and legitimizes itself by erasing the other. Here the pieces fit. War claims the land. Sacrifice consecrates it. Extermination removes all resistance. None of this is chaotic. None of this is accidental. It is an architecture of power. And the question is no longer whether it happened. The question is who was behind all of this, because when the divine looks too much like domination, something does not add up. and we still have not reached the most unsettling part.
Conclusion. Today, we did not come to give comfortable answers. We came to show a pattern. Ordered wars, demanded blood, erased peoples, not as human errors, but as acts presented in the name of the divine. And when we look at everything together, without fragmenting it, without justifying it, something becomes impossible to ignore. This God does not act like a universal creator. He acts like a power that conquers, controls, and eliminates. Jesus does not continue that model. He stops it. He does not claim territories. He does not erase peoples. He does not demand blood. And that leaves us facing the most unsettling question of all. If Jesus came to reveal the true God, whom were the wars, sacrifices, and exterminations really revealing? Perhaps the biblical conflict was not only between good and evil. Perhaps it was between two authorities, and we, worshipping without knowing which one. Coders, this does not end here. What we have seen today is only one piece of the system. In the next chapters, we will enter what sustains all of this from within: the altar, the blood, the law, and the forces that ruled from the invisible. If this content resonated with you, if you felt discomfort, if something inside you said, "This doesn't fit," then this space is also yours. Subscribe. Share this episode with those who are ready to question. Because the more of us who dare to look straight ahead, the closer we will be to deciphering the divine code. This is just the beginning.